You're on the job at this dope tech company, you're interning or you just started out full time, and you're ready to do whatever it takes to be able to prove yourself. But how? What's up, everyone? Markel here, and today I want to talk about how to best position yourself when you're starting out in a full time role or an internship. The positioning in the first few days are really critical for your overall success. For an internship, you only have 3, 4, and if it's a co-op, maybe 5 months to be able to prove yourself, to be able to get that full-time offer extended to you. And if you're full-time, you just want to do good because you don't probably want to get fired or you don't want a bad performance review. So the things that you do in the very beginning are really, really paramount to the future success and overall trajectory that you end up going in your career. Take it from me. I started off actually pretty bad. I hope no one ever has that same experience I had as far as like really struggling the first few weeks at Tesla, but luckily I got it together and was able to do some pretty cool stuff. Like Hove said, I did it, so you shouldn't have to do it. Is that kind of lame? But I mean, that's what I'm trying to express. So like, I'm not trying to have you do what I did. I just want you guys to flourish. And if you're new here, welcome, what's up? I make videos about career, tech, and mindset. And honestly, I think that mindset is really the core of all of this because that is what enables us, whether you're an engineer, designer, or just a critical thinker, to be able to flourish in our domains. It's really our mindset, pushing ourselves to new heights again and again. So if that sounds like something that you're into, personal growth and development, professional growth and development, hit that subscribe button. More videos, more content like this coming out. Probably have some other ones that you can already check out too. It's your first day. You don't know what to do, but you just want to make sure you do a great job. Whether you're a full-time or an intern, it's the same thing. The first thing you need to do is set expectations with your manager. One place where I learned a whole lot about this was actually from The Alliance by Reid Hoffman. So Reid Hoffman was one of the co-founders of LinkedIn. So I feel like he knows a little bit about careers and networking type stuff. So take his word for it. I would say this is actually a day read. It's not that long of a book. It's pretty short in length, and I feel like the words are pretty big. I'll try to like show you guys how. Let me show you how big like the words are. I mean, like it's like a kid's book, low key. But yeah, the first thing you need to do is set expectations with your manager. That means sitting down with your manager saying, "Hey, what are the goals that I need to work actively toward, and by when?" Because by not having this explicitly stated, you can run around and just try to do things that you hope will impress your manager. Trust me, I've done it. And you don't want to do that because that wasted energy, no matter how good or how valuable that output may be, if your manager is not aligned with what you're doing, it could be for naught. It could just be wasted energy that has no reward at the end of the tunnel. So to do this, you need to ask, what do I need to work on? When are the deadlines? And what are essentially my incentives if I do this? If you're day one as like an intern and just starting out, the incentives are pretty obvious. Like you either get like an internship extension or maybe you get an offer at the end of this. Overall, you need to want to set expectations of like what the incentives and what the ultimate goals are for you and make sure that you guys agree upon that. If your goal is to get a full-time job and the manager's goal is not even to fill any open positions, it can pretty much feel like a dead end type of internship. So make sure you align on that expectation of what you're trying to get out of the internship. And a job or an offer shouldn't be the only thing you look for. You should look for growth too. This is the best time to try to find a way to grow, right? This is the resume building opportunity. So if you don't know something, this is actually a pretty, as crazy as it sounds, pretty good opportunity to say, hey, I want to work on this project that I kind of don't know much about. There are really no other times you're going to be able to say that. You can't say that during the interview. You can't say that when you're looking for a job. Like, hey, I want to work on a project that I've never done before and I know nothing about. You're probably not going to get it for whatever reason. But once you're in the job, people tend to, especially managers, tend to say, you know what? If we can put the right support systems in place, yeah, let's make it happen. If you're lacking a skill, whether it's programming or analyzing data or understanding something within your technical domain, this is a really good opportunity to just say, hey, I want to dive deeper into that. I think everybody wants to be a leader, which is great, but I think you have to focus on being a really good individual contributor and being able to execute the tasks that are given to you first before you want to get to the position of delegating and trying to oversee tasks. I think it's really important to be able to execute first and then be able to delegate second. That will make you a stronger delegator if you're able to call BS and you're able to understand what it actually takes to get certain type of tasks done. If you never analyze data and then you ask someone to do it for you, you don't know what that actually entails. You don't know how to do it, and you don't know really how long it could take. So make sure you have a fine grasp on that. Anyway, that's just like a side note. Setting expectations with your manager. Let's get back to that. So you talk to them and you say, hey, for this internship, these are my personal goals. I want to learn XYZ, and I recommend you lead this type of conversation because otherwise you'll get put on projects and work that you just don't care about. For my first internship, I actually worked at an oil company, Marathon, in Findlay, Ohio. And oil and gas, honestly, doesn't have a strong overlap with sustainability. Kind of sucks. But I really wanted to do something sustainability related. And I talked with my mentor and I said, hey, my goal is to work on a energy efficiency type project. What can I do? So by setting that kind of expectation, he kind of went back and said, okay, here are the different projects that I can offer you. If I didn't say that, I probably would have got wrapped into, and I still did, got wrapped into doing pipeline engineering, project management type stuff, which again, not necessarily my forte or my interest space. Really good exposure, but that wasn't really what I was trying to learn, work on, or grow towards. So again, take ownership in saying the type of work that you want to do and what you're trying to learn and the experiences you're trying to get with your manager. This is independent if you're an intern or full-time. I think that for an intern, it's maybe more prevalent because you only have a short duration and you're really trying to like fill your experience bank, if you will, before you get to the position of looking for a job. So during that conversation, it's going to be you and your manager. They're going to express their goals for you. You're going to have your own set of goals, and you guys have to work together to figure out what those projects are, what are the ultimate deliverables, and what are the rewards that you could potentially get at the end of the tunnel, at the end of the experience. And if you're full-time, that may be 6 months down the line. I suggest before a performance review because you don't want your first assessment to be before, like at a performance review. You want it to be beforehand so you don't walk into that conversation like, I wonder if I did the right things for the last year. That's not a good way to go about that. The last thing that you want to do within that conversation is once you've established what the mutual goals are and the overall objectives, the timing, write it down. This sounds small, but this is the source of truth for your priorities. You're going to get a whole bunch of tasks from a whole bunch of different people, but you want to make sure that you focused on the primary things from your manager. So make sure it's written down and send it in an email. Say, hey, per this conversation, we've established that the goals for this internship are 1, 2, 3. And my goal is to get, an offer for a full-time opportunity. And have that in writing. And if they disagree, they'll say, well, not sure about that. And that makes sure that you have kind of closed the loop on that communication as well. You don't want to have a conversation where you say like, hey, what should I work on? And then they say, work on this. And then you just go off and do it, never verify, and then you deliver it. And they're like, this isn't what I asked for. So you always want to make sure that you have a clear understanding of what the deliverables are. And the best way to do that is really just to reiterate it back to them. The next thing I'd say is understanding that effort isn't the goal, output is. And what I mean by that is it's really cool to put in a lot of time at work, or it's really cool to have a really difficult time trying to solve something, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you're doing what you're supposed to do. And more importantly, you're not necessarily adding value to the company. Your fundamental goal as an employee, whether it's an intern or a full-time person, is to add value in the organization. If you're not doing that, people can potentially question why you're around, and you don't want them to do that, trust me. So actually I have a pretty interesting story about a time that I expended way too much energy on a task. So this was during the Model S days, and the factory is a pretty large place. I'll try to show you guys a picture, but basically I walked half of the factory's length from one end to like the midpoint, which was like the office area, carrying a 90-pound first row seat to my desk in order to debug some of the sensors in it on my shoulder. 90 pounds on my shoulder for no reason. I thought it was like the right thing to do. And I think that like everybody watching this is probably thinking, man, this guy's stupid. Like, why would you do that? I think this is a really obvious example. But I think that the experiences that a lot of interns that I've seen and full-time employees when they're first starting off, they kind of fall into that same thing in a different way. And it's essentially just struggling when you don't have to. So in that moment, someone, I was carrying the seat and someone was like, hey, do you want a pallet jack to carry this seat and drag it across the factory? And I was like, you know what? No, I'm good. I'll just carry it on my shoulder. I'm almost there. That's pretty dumb. If someone offers you help that is actually a time saver and less effort, why wouldn't you take that? So the equivalent here would be if you're struggling on a task and someone more senior says, hey, do you need help? And you say, no, I'll figure it out. That's pretty dumb. You're just wasting your own time. And while it does feel good to solve something on your own, it's not about your ego. It's about, again, doing the right thing for the company, making progress, adding value. So don't let your ego get in the way, and don't let this notion of effort distract from what's really important, which is output. Your efforts, if they're not aligned with what your manager said, can be really frustrating for your manager to see. And the last thing I'd say is don't reinvent the wheel, which sounds really trivial, but so many times people do it. If you're a programmer or you do any type of software, you already know if you go to Stack Overflow, you can copy a whole bunch of code, or you can log on to GitHub and get a bunch of source code, drag and drop it into your project, and now you're off to the races. Or you just find an API, or you find something that already exists. You don't build from scratch. Rarely do you have to build from scratch. And if you're building from scratch, you're probably doing something very specialized, or you're doing it wrong. In the specialized example, it's like there's no one that you can find who has already converted from one format of data to another format of data. And you're like, I really need to do this because me wasting time trying to find someone who's already done this isn't the best use of my time. That's cool. But if you're trying to do something like a CSV parser, where I'm pretty sure I can type in the word CSV parser and it can come up in like any programming language, I can just get that and see if I can use that as my starting point instead of, again, starting from scratch. I talked to this guy who was a executive in IoT space, and he told me something that was really, really interesting, and I want to share it with you too. And it is copy, paste, innovate. And essentially what that means is this is the innovation cycle as he sees it. You copy and paste something, and then you build on top of it. You don't start from scratch and say, hey, I want to build a car. Let's start by creating this round thing of a wheel. Literally, let's reinvent the wheel. No, you start with what you know, what's already been proven that works, and you build from there. Same in that software example. I find this really helpful because it saves me time not only when I'm designing something, but it also saves time when I'm like trying to think of a solution. And this is a tricky zone to get into because there's a lot of like back at former employers that I've heard where people say, they just try to copy some feature or some attribute from another company into this company. And it's like, well, this isn't that company. And you can't just arbitrarily drag and drop a solution. Maybe you can drag and drop a process or a methodology or a framework like using Pokeokes or Genchi Genbutsu from Toyota. But you shouldn't copy an entire feature on a product and say, hey, they have this thing, we should just put it over here. It's like Patrick was like, we just take this town and push it somewhere else. I like that clip. And so it's like, yeah, don't just take something from one end or just one product and try to like drag and drop it into the other. That's not necessarily the best thing to do. With it, it's like this idea of copy, paste, innovate really helps when it comes to curating things. And what I mean by curating is being able to compile from different sources. As an electrical engineer designing different sensors, I would often find myself either reading research papers or reference designs, which are essentially given out by chip makers to say like, hey, if you're using this chip, here's a design that you can use as your starting point. So I don't have to reinvent the wheel. So now my job becomes curating from different sources to be able to figure out what the best solution overall is and kind of compiling everything together and packaging it. And so that's kind of actually like, that's what an OEM really is. It's like your Toyotas, your Volkswagen, your Teslas. An OEM basically says like, I'm gonna not build every part by myself. I'm gonna get a bunch of companies who already specialize in building these things. I'm gonna take it, integrate it really, really well, and then ship it and put my name on it, which is fine. Like if you get it from that source, you get it from this source and they say it's okay, like why not? So the same thing a lot of times when it comes to design, it's like a lot of really good hard work has already been done. So why not lean or leverage that in the work that I'm doing? So that saves a lot of time, saves a lot of effort, and it can actually really like multiply your output because you're able to deliver something that's already kind of proven and high quality. Overall, I just say don't hurt yourself doing unnecessary things at work. Everything you should do should be mission critical or directed by your management. If you're not doing something that falls in either one of those categories, it's probably not the best thing to do. Use these tips to improve the efficiency of how you use your time and kind of hone in how to be successful in an internship or again, starting off full time, because it's those first few months where you're first getting acclimated and first kind of trying to understand all the different jargon, understand the expectations of the workplace and its culture that are really paramount. And you don't want to sit there and struggle for no reason. So be effective with your time. Make sure you're aligned with your management and copy, paste, innovate. I'll see you on the next one. I appreciate you watching all the way through. If you made it this far and you haven't hit the subscribe button, I invite you to hit the subscribe button. Let me know in the comments what you found useful and what else you would like to see, and I'll see you guys there. Have a dope day. Peace.